What's happening? Good afternoon. This your boy Bobby Hill with another episode of the Big Down. Hope y'all had a good weekend. Hope everything's going good with y'all. Hope you had a good Father's Day. Hope you had everything was safe. I hope everything was peaceful. I hope it was happy, but some little dealing with fathers, parents anyway could be it could be tricky sometimes. So dealing with kids or the parent, So hope everything went okay. Hope everybody made it back home and back to work and back on that grind. I was work worked all weekend. Worked this morning. Just always grinding and trying to maintain, still trying to keep this thing going here. So I'll be here like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, trying to expand, trying to get better every time, trying to be better than I was the last time. That's my only goal right now, to be better than I was before. I have to give a shout out to my lovely wife, Miss Sandra Hill. She's doing her thing. She's working right now, but her other job is being my backbone, being my support. She keeps me grounded, keeps me level headed. You know, keeps me straight. Whenever she keeps me, I'm older now. Making sure that everything she see that something. She always asking, "You okay? Something's wrong?" All that. Even when you get on my nerves, she's asking me, "Hey, how you doing? Everything okay? Everything, So you want to make sure so that she's there. She's there. She's my support. I do the same for her. Asking her, is she okay? Everything all right? Everything good with you. That's what you got to be. You got to be each other's support. It don't matter what It may matter what you do. He's saying with everything, but as long as it's positive and stuff, two people together, man, it's good that y'all support each other. Y'all give each other support. Y'all be each other's rock. And it always gonna be, you know, like I said, in a relationship, it always they want to say 50-50 all the time, but that isn't you know that isn't true. That isn't possible. Period. Because a relationship changes throughout time, and the burden of finances or the burden of responsibility fluctuates from time to time. It depends on what's happening in that relationship at the time. You know, if if the man, what if he's sick or injured or whatever, the woman may have to put forth a lot more, maybe a 90-10, 80-20. And the same thing. If the woman is hurt, things happen. She might get sick, she might get hurt, or whatever, something. But she's incapacitated for a little while, where she can't walk, okay, you know, whatever, and she's not be able to provide. It might be 80-20, 90-10 for the man doing the most. It's like that in a relationship, man. And you got to embrace that. You got to embrace, you know, the ups and the downs, because just as as you know one part of the relationship team, as you might get frustrated because you might feel like you putting in a whole lot and not getting a lot in return for the moment. You have to hang in there, and think about, okay, I'm just helping my person get through this, on the other end. you know you know and you get, so you get taken care of. What I'm saying, you get the satisfaction of taking care of your partner, and then your partner showing love, man. And the other way, your partner has to show love, show appreciation. However way you show it, but show appreciation, man. Don't tell other people how you enjoy what this person did. Tell that person. Don't tell your friends how you feel about that person. Tell that person. Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. Cup hit that. But yeah, don't tell other people. Don't tell tell that person. Don't let them know about. Don't let them find out by hearsay. Oh, you know, the person like, yeah, man. Yeah, she was talking about you, man. She was real nice. She was, she enjoyed, or she really loves you, or she says it all the time. Like, damn, don't say it to me. So you got to do that. So you have to be like that. You have to be, you have to let your partner know. You know, I let my wife know. She lets me know all the time. Tell her how you feel. Tell them that don't be. As a man, don't let society make you think that nothing wrong with, intimate moments with your wife or your significant other, you know, having intimate moments and, breaking down that barrier and tell them how you feel. It's okay. Especially when you got that level of trust. Don't do it. Man, if they earn that level of trust, it's okay to, let the walls, come down a little bit, man. Let them in and stuff, man. Us as men, we got to do a better job of that too, man. Letting your partner in, you know. You don't want them. You want them to understand you, but you want them to understand you from the outside. That's impossible. You got to let them in, let them see see what's causing, some sort of anxiety, some sort of strife, some sort of pain. Let that person see. You never know. Ain't saying the person might not be able to fix it, but they might be able to provide emotional support. Provide. So they might have a way or a concept to help you to make you think about something differently, to make you try to come at something at a different way. They can help you do that, man. Help you see stuff from a different angle. So you got to trust in your partner. You got to trust in each other. That's our relationship. That's how relationship flourish, man. Y'all got to trust each other and you got to communicate. You have to communicate. Communication is probably the most important part. You have to communicate. You really, really have to because there's nobody is a mind reader. No reader. Nobody is a mind reader out here. We don't know as a man or woman. You do not know what other person. You cannot look at them and this. I mean, you can look and see how some people wear their emotions on their sleeve, or you can see how they feeling like by looking at them. But as far as like reading them, no, can't tell like a person who's really going through something just by looking at them. Not. You have to communicate with them. You have to communicate, and the person that's going through it has to, be able to open up and stop saying I'm fine. Stop saying I'm fine when we can see that there's something bothering you. We can see that, and the fact you said, "Say I'm fine," that's sort of like an insult a little bit, but we'll understand sometimes it takes people a while to break that barrier down so they can, open up a little bit and let someone in to help you, because you've been battling this, whatever it is, whatever demon it is, whatever you've been battling it for, whatever, your whole life, your adult life, whatever. You've been battling something for a long time, and you've been thinking just because you've been surviving day to day that you've been dealing with it when it's slowly probably been eating you away. So you let somebody else in to help you see it from a different direction. They might can help you. They might can help you battle it, help you see things that you couldn't see because you was blinded. So, that's what partners are there for. To help each other, lean on each other, help us see things from a different perspective, help us, get a fresh idea on stuff, because we, us as men, we get not, again, the older we get, the more stubborn we get, the more set in our ways we get. So, part of getting through to us is to realize that we set now we get some of us we've been doing things a certain way our whole lives, and we got that from someone who taught us how to do this certain way. So it's something that's embedded in you. So you have to be able to open your mind up and be like somebody introduce something different, be able to at least listen to them. You don't have to say yes, you don't have to agree with them, you don't have to do what they say, but just give them to respect and listen to them and consider it. I mean, you never know. They might not. They might, have something. something. You might get a little kernel out of it to help you out, and that's good. So, but you have to be open to, don't be set in your ways. Don't be stubborn. Don't be like, yeah, my way or the highway. That gets you nowhere. So, yes. I'm sorry. I mean, I ain't always gonna be giving relationship advice today, but like I said, I'm in the water. I'm in a canal. I don't got no paddle or nothing. I'm just going with the current, and the current took me to relationship central. So that's where we at right now. So, um, like I said, man, we got to be, we got to do better at opening up, allowing people to come in. Stop being so hardened by you know I know life can be hard. Life can harden your outer shell. Life can harden your outer shell, and if you let it get to you more, it can get to your heart. It can harden your heart. You know, harden your soul. Because I mean, it could be because life is. I mean, people out here. Some people out here. There are people out here. Well, there's mischievous, evil people out here. And on the other hand, there's generous, great people out here. But it always seems like that the people that you hear about all the time always be the mischievous, be the criminal, be the ones who disturb life, not the ones who help life move along, the ones who intent on disturbing the flow of life. So, it's hard. It's hard to sometimes it's hard to see the good in this world because it's just, all the images that are shown are images of evil, how everything is messed up, how everything is going bad, how we are all divided, how we, hate each other, how this country against that country and all that stuff, right? It's just crazy. It's crazy. Like I said, then you take all that and then you're trying to find, like I said, being in the dating pool out here trying to find somebody. It's crazy because you got to get through all that and then try to find somebody that that you can bond with or whatever. That you don't have to agree on everything. You don't have to agree on stuff. But I think you have to be on a certain accord. Like you don't have to be perfect. Like you both don't have to be Republicans. You both don't have to be Democrats. You both don't have to be liberal. You both don't have to be conservative. You both don't have to like the same president. You don't have to whatever. But you have to have. I think you have to be on the same accord. Meaning you have to share some sort of values, some sort of set of core values. Y'all have to like share and y'all can agree to disagree how to implement those core values that y'all share, but you have to have something like you know it will be hard to see, and then if I could, if I will see whatever, it will be hard to see a MAGA Republican, hardcore MAGA Republican, you know dating someone from the Barack Obama coalition. I mean, I couldn't see them too. I mean, I couldn't. I mean, because their core, beliefs are different. So I don't know if they share the same ideas about certain things, about life, about life and generosity and compassion and stuff like that. So, like you said, you have to share things like that. I figure to at least have a chance. You don't actually you don't have to agree on everything, but you have to be able to you have to share some sort of core value, and you have to be flexible. Meaning you have to be willing to let information in, let new information in, not just hearing the same people who believe the same thing you believe in. that helps, bolster your beliefs and makes you feel better about what you believe because you have what we call the yes men. You have yes men, people telling you everything, you want to hear about that. But you have to be willing to let, people in there that may feel differently, you know. You and this woman, or like I said, you and this other person may get along or whatever, and you find out that they voted for a person that you don't like, but you still like this person. If you like them, you be willing to get around that. Y'all can discuss that. You can talk about it and stuff like that. Have intelligent conversations about it. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing wrong with that. And so I was talking to a man. I was on his. The first time on this podcast had a little, technical difficulty, so we did a reshoot of it. And we was talking about this, and you asked me about it. And I had a pod. As soon as we did it, I had a podcast on Saturday. The last time yeah, as men, we have to be. I feel like we have to, expand what we can do. We talk about, we do all this, and men can do all this in the world. We make the world run. It's true you make the world run, but damn it, we need to make our damn household run. You know, what's the difference? You can make the world run when your damn household is stopped. Your household ain't running, but you making the world run. That's you need to flip that. You know, you know what I'm saying? Is us as men, man. We got to learn just expand. We have to expand what we are. We have to expand like what we are doing. We have to expand like what what is required of us in the household. We have to be able to expand like things that we thought that men shouldn't have to do. Men don't need to do and stuff like that. We need to learn how to do that stuff. Learn how to. Don't say you won't have to do it, but have that knowledge because you never know, man. Life, you never know. Life throw you curveballs, and you never know, like what. You never know what might be put in front of you and what you have to deal with. And if you have that knowledge, it'll help you get through the situation better instead of having to call somebody, instead of having to rely on somebody else. You know how to do it. You know. Talking in general. I'm trying not to get specific because there could be a range of things that can apply to. So that's why I try to keep it general. Try not to get too specific because they say it can apply to a lot of things. So like I said, Trey, it's keep it general. That's what I do. It's easier for everybody. Easier for me, easier for everybody. You can say you apply it to whatever, you know, situation you may have in your life. So I feel like, you should be able to, you know, be able to do that. That's why, just want to keep it. And whenever I talk about anything, I try to keep it general. There might be a few times I get specific, but most times like this, based talk about relationships and stuff like that, I try to keep it general. Try not to, point. I try. I don't use call names or try to point people out as far as that. Because I'm trying to. They ain't the point of that. Trying to call people out like that. Except ignorant. Ignorant. Sometimes I call out like I know earlier shows I might have said something about Stephen A. Smith, whatever, because I felt like whatever. I have feelings about him. He pisses me off sometimes. I don't even want to talk about that right now. Getting back to what I was talking about earlier about the relationships. But yes, us as man, we got to become more. We got to up our value, man. We can't just be one thing, be this, be like, we got to learn how to, expand our stuff, expand our, horizon, especially you got kids, man. You got your little ones looking at you, man. Let them, lead by example. I know, it might require you to put forth a little bit of effort, but sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes it's worth it. As far as with significant other, man, don't it's like I said, don't that's y'all relationship. Don't worry about what nobody else got to say. Don't worry about what anybody else have to think about. What y'all the one that lay together at night and y'all the one to discuss y'all future. So don't be, afraid to let that person in. Don't be afraid to, you know, show a little bit of vulnerability. Let that's you don't have to be totally vulnerable, but show a little bit of vulnerability. Let that person in a little bit. Let them, like I said, let them assist you. If only just the shoulder to lean on. Something. With me, that's one rub the head or something. You know, just anything that's to ease the mind and stuff. Because like I said, this world can be stressful out here. So going through it alone can be very, very, very taxing, very, very, very difficult. You know, so it's good to try to find somebody out here in this world, especially this day and age, because I'm just saying, life coming at you so fast. Next thing you know, it's 10 years down the line. So get caught up in your career, get caught up in everything, and life puts your head down. Next thing you know, you staring at mortality. So, keep your head up, get your head up, and look. Like I said, take time out to smell the roses. You know, heard that saying most of my life, and now it starts to make more sense than anything. So just wake up and smell the roses. Wake up and you know just look around and see what's beautiful around you. See what's you know instead of hearing about all the negativity and all the ugliness. Take a moment to check wherever you at. Take a moment to check the beauty around you and check. And just realize how fortunate you are to be here and just take it. Are things perfect? No, there's nothing around perfect, but you have to make the best of where you at, the situation you in. You have to make the best out of it. You can say complain about it, and like I tell people, people we most of the time people be asking, be like, when you meet someone, like, what's up? What's up? How you doing? All right, hello, how you doing and stuff. And people will respond like, I can't complain. That's a common reference there. I can't complain. Well, here, I can't complain. And then my response to that always been, okay, well, you can complain, but ain't nobody gonna give a damn. And I always laugh and be like, well, that's true. Yes. You can complain all you want to. Ain't nobody gonna give a damn. Everybody got problems. Everybody got stuff going on. Everybody got issues. You know. It don't matter how much money you got. It don't matter what your status is. Everybody got problems. Everybody got problems. And with all these problems everybody got, everybody got problems. All these things going on. I am not worrying about why Sean Corey Carter, aka Jay Z, went from dreads to afro. I do not care less about that. I do not understand why people. But, that's crazy, but that's just I don't know, man. That's a whole nother story. Because I used to be a Jay Z fan. I mean, I was a fan from the beginning. 96. The Dead Presidents. I was at Phelps State University when Jay Z came out, and I remember when there was this DJ that come. It was this DJ that was out that was popular around that area, Phelps State, and there was a white boy from South Carolina. His name was DJ B Lord. That's the first he had a mixtape. When I first got there, he was passing out a mixtape, and he had Dead Presidents. That's the first time I heard Jay Z. And it was nice, and I liked it and stuff. And then he come out, and he's a very gifted rapper and stuff, and he's very he did his thing. He did his thing. He did it. He was very. It was a wild that I thought, I think saying he was the greatest because of what, the things he was able to accomplish in the time that he was there. Because I basically listened to him from Reasonable Doubt up to the Blackout. I did King Come a little bit, but I was sort of like I was getting older, so I was sort of like veering away from all. I didn't. I mean, it just wasn't hitting the same when I was got older. It just wasn't. So um, I don't know. It just the time, but I still was thinking. I still think he was the as far as what like one of like the greatest rapper. But as I got older and stuff, I just things have changed. The mentality think differently. I mean, as far as with feeling, I know he's not the greatest like lyricist and stuff, but I think Tupac. I always thought Tupac, but I thought Jay Z was there as far as because he had a lot of skills. But I think it's Tupac. I always think it's Tupac for personally because the way he had impacted my life. Big impacted my life a lot too. I loved it when he first came out, but he ain't hit like Pop. You know, but I I don't know, man. I just, growing, getting older. Like I said, I was in my 20s and 30s and stuff, but, I'm in my 50s now. And it's, as you mature and stuff, and, and I congratulate him. He's a billionaire and he's worth like 2 billion or whatever. He's obtaining a lot of wealth. But personally, I look at him the same way I look at now like I said, as you get age, you get perspective. You get, as you get more knowledgeable, you start your thinking evolves. So as me growing up, looking up like, damn, he doing the thing. Look what he did. What he was able to accomplish doing this. Even though he did it by this way, he was able to overcome that and use his skills and become a successful person. A very wealthy person. But as you get older, I look at it like, man, I know, a lot of people that done that growing up, with him selling crack and everything. I don't, whatever. I have mixed feelings about that because we didn't put it there. Like Nino Brown said, we don't know who's it. Don't nobody in Harlem owns a poppy field. So that's a whole nother story. But I think that you know, like the fact they look at these great families. I mean, not whatever these so and so great families, American families coming up in the turn of the century. Turn of the 20th century when they had all the had the families that did things illegal things to acquire wealth, and then over time their family became wealthy and prominent families in this country and stuff. But they did it by people have gotten killed. People have done a lot of things to skirt the law to get that. And I look at him like that because I'm saying you sold crack to your mom, and that I can't overlook that. Older as I get now, I look at that and them voices, like especially with that song. I think it was on his first album, on Reasonable Doubt, that "You Must Love Me," and he talked about selling crack to his mom, man. Just I don't shooting his brother. That's whatever. But doing that to your mom, man. Nah, I just can't get down with that. I just can't. The older I get, the louder that gets, and that's why I see when I'm like, man, I can't. How can you look at yourself? What were you thinking about yourself when you did that? You know, I know you was getting money. I know you was coming up. That had that New York state of mind, like But I don't know. Maybe that's me and my conscience. Maybe that's why the Lord never. That's why I was never presented. That's why I was never advanced in doing things like that because man, I had a conscience and I couldn't resort to things like I wouldn't be willing to resort to things like that just to make a dollar. I couldn't do that, and that's people are different. Just I couldn't do that. I couldn't sleep at night knowing that I did that. Hell, I couldn't sleep at night. I don't care what my sibling did. I couldn't sleep at night knowing that I shot a sibling. I don't care what it was. I don't care about some brains or whatever. I don't care. I wouldn't do that. Because blood means a lot to me. So I couldn't. family, blood, not blood like shooting up, but blood family means a lot to me. So I couldn't do stuff like that. I couldn't participate in stuff like that. So yeah. But that's how I see it, man. Not hating, just with age come perspective, man. That's what I think now. I don't, value that far as like I said, he's successful and stuff, and he's great. He's able to obtain a lot of fortune, a lot of clout, a lot of everything. He's become a very influential and successful person. Got a beautiful wife, got beautiful kids and stuff, and probably in the future, you probably hear their kids, starting with Blue Ivy. You gonna see them somewhere, because they have a talented, they have a, have a talented gene pool. So you never know. But it's just with me, with him, that's why I feel about that as far as growing up. I can't get past that. It just no, like I say, I ain't hate him. He's a black man, get money and stuff. Do what you have to do. But that right there, I just can't look at that. And that's to me, that will always be like a stain for me for that. So, I would never look past that. I don't care about money. Money don't to me. Money don't tell you. Money don't tell you what type of person you are. Money don't reveal. I mean, it reveals who you really are, but it don't shape who you are. Who you are is who you are. It don't matter because you're not born. Even though your family might have money, you're not born like you don't come out with a dollar in your hand. I'm saying you obtain money. Who you are is who you are inside. That's who you are. You know. So like I said, having a lot of money don't mean that you're a better person. More money don't mean